JD Vance does not seem to be connecting with voters very well. In fact, I would say he is not connecting with voters, more like repulsing them with his very presence, which is not the goal of a campaign for president. It is not to repulse them from your presence. If that was the goal, I would have to give it to JD Vance. He would be knocking it out of the park, absolutely. But sadly, the point isn't to make the women you are near cross the street when they see you. It is to make them want to vote for you. But that has not been what JD Vance has been able to accomplish. With his opening salvos of being Trump's VP pick being mostly people talking about his previous negative comments around Trump, people vetting him for the first time after him only having 2 years of national spotlight after winning the race in Ohio due to Trump's endorsement against Democratic legislator Tim Ryan, and his radical positions undermining Donald Trump's ticket for the presidency, including his close ties to Project 2025, which he even wrote the foreword for the book of the guy in charge of the Heritage Foundation who wrote Project 2025. So it's making it harder for Trump to separate himself from a very unpopular conservative think tank plan to transform the United States in what they call a bloodless revolution, if, and I quote, if the left allows it to be. So let's go through a few moments from JD Vance.
People without kids voting for JD Vance are voting against their own right to vote. It is bizarrely self-annihilating.
I don't know if they're voting against their very right to vote, but they are voting at diluting the political influence, which we will get into a moment. So let's look at a few instances that have been dug up by JD Vance's political opponents and shown to the public, as well as JD Vance on the campaign trail showing not the best levels of charisma before talking about how the American public's actually receiving him, which is historically bad. So first, let's talk about something that's really going to hurt Donald Trump, really going to make him less electable as a VP, JD Vance, and something that might be making Donald Trump rethink picking him as VP. First off, JD Vance has called not only for federal abortion bans, but he has also called for that when the local states like Ohio or otherwise, which is the state he is the senator from, bans abortion, that there is laws in place, fugitive acts, to stop women from going to other states to access reproductive health care services. Meaning that if a woman, let's say 18-year-old, 19-year-old, or younger, was violated by somebody and they wanted to go to a different state to receive services because it was no longer available in the state of Ohio, then a federal response would block them from doing so and then arrest them and punish them for attempting to get reproductive health care services elsewhere. Listen to JD Vance explaining how he would want this policy to work.
Okay, look, here's the situation. Let's say Roe versus Wade is overruled. Ohio bans abortion, in 2022 or let's say 2024. And then, every day, George Soros sends a 747 to Columbus load up disproportionately Black women to get them to go have abortions in California. And of course, the left will celebrate this as a victory for diversity. That's kind of creepy.
Health justice is when we exterminate class Black people.
Something like that could, that would be a really weird turn of events that could happen. Yes.
And it's like, if that happens, do you need some federal response to prevent it from happening? Because it's really creepy. And, I'm pretty sympathetic to that, actually.
I'm pretty sympathetic to that, actually. Number one, his scenario for why women fleeing Ohio to get reproductive health care services need to be pursued by law enforcement is that George Soros is going to buy planes to fly Black women to get abortions, which, God, can't believe they busted that plan wide open. It was right in the planning phases right now. They just busted it wide open. That plan was that close to fruition. But then he goes into saying that he's sympathetic to it. He's sympathetic to the idea of having a federal response to that. He uses this ridiculous scenario not happening to fearmonger about people who were fleeing the state, who were trying to obey the law in Ohio, saying, fine, I will not get the services here. I will go somewhere where it is legal. You know, each law creates their own state. So we will simply go to a state where the law is different. And he is saying, no, if you're born in Ohio, you are owned by Ohio, from your head to your toe to your uterus. If you get pregnant in the state of Ohio, then you are pregnant until delivery. That is that. No allowance of you to go anywhere else to access reproductive health care services, whether if you were a child and you were raped, whether you were a woman who got pregnant after just a horrible, horrible experience, doesn't matter. Federal response. This is something where Trump is trying to distance himself from a federal ban of abortion. And Trump, and JD Vance isn't just advocating for federal abortion ban. JD Vance is advocating for pursuing those who try to flee states that have these draconian laws on abortion and hunting them down like a Fugitive Woman's Act. So this is something that has made JD Vance rub people the wrong way. And that weird label he gave has been applied to him. In fact, we're going to get to that in a second. But this isn't the first thing that's been dug up. Here's another thing that's been dug up that's been getting a lot of negative reaction. JD Vance saying that Americans without children should face some consequences, and saying that they getting the same voice in a democracy as people with kids is not fair. And so he wants to give votes to parents with children from those children, so they get to vote on behalf of the children. So if you have 9 kids, you get to vote 9 extra times, and you just get to claim that you're voting in your child's best interest and that you represent your child's voice. Even if your child disagrees with you, it is what it is. And they get extra votes, diluting the votes of people without kids and propping up the political influence of those with kids, even if their kids don't agree with those political positions. This is what he said in front of a crowd of people.
Let's give votes to all children in this country, but let's give control over those votes to the parents of those children. When you go to the polls in this country as a parent, you should have more power. You should have more of an ability to speak your voice in our democratic republic than people who don't have kids. Let's face the consequences and the reality. If you don't have as much of an investment in the future of this country, maybe you shouldn't get nearly the same voice. Now,
let's be clear. You are alive. You're in the ship. You have an investment in the ship succeeding. Just because you don't have kids does not mean you don't care about the future of the country. You can still believe in the principles of a republic and wanting to see that continue. If I never had kids, let's say I married a man and we never adopted, we never had kids, and we went on to want to have an impact in politics, it could be because we care about a democratic republic. It can be because we care about, scientific development or clean energy or any other number of issues. And can I also say that JD Vance has attacked Kamala Harris as a childless cat lady, even though Kamala Harris has stepchildren. And I want to say that alienating stepfathers and stepmothers across the country is probably not a winning campaign strategy. So, diluting the votes of those without children, having a Fugitive Women's Act for those who flee states that have draconian abortion laws. My goodness. And he's just stacking up just popular fun position on top of popular fun position, and then going after step parent. I mean, he is just the perfect candidate. But can I just say that on top of all of this, JD Vance is also a charisma machine. He is somebody who can energize a crowd. So I wanted to show you guys a moment from JD Vance's first campaign appearance, where he is speaking from the heart, trying to connect with the voters about Mountain Dew.
Democrats say that it is racist to believe, they say it's racist to do anything.
I had a Diet Mountain Dew yesterday.
And one today. I'm sure they're going to call that racist too, but it's good. I love you guys. But
now this was edited by Kamala HQ, but go check the original clip. It's not that much of an edit. It's what does that even mean? Racist Diet Mountain Dew? Number one, Diet Mountain Dew. You can tell that, how Rust Belt are you, Mr. Diet Mountain Dew? But it doesn't seem like high energy, fun, charismatic speaking ability is really his forte. But let's give him another shot. Here's him trying to get people to come out and volunteer and support the campaign based on the snacks that they have. Check this out.
Hey guys, JD Vance here at Radford, Virginia. I thought I'd take you behind the scenes a little bit. When you get to an event, they've got a ton of crap for you to drink and eat. You got 3 bottles of Diet Mountain Dew, about a dozen Snickers, a bag of chips. If I ate even half this stuff, of course, I'd balloon up like crazy. This is the energy that powers the presidential and vice presidential campaign. Of course, I'm honored to be supporting President Trump. I'm honored to be his running mate. If you want to help us, chip in $5, chip in $15 to get the message out and to get people to the polls. This election is so important. Your resources help us do the things we need to win it.
What? We have Snickers. If I eat a lot of Snickers, I'll get fat. Donate to Trump. Look, I've heard a lot of campaign pitches in my day. Some of them, quite out there. This isn't really a campaign pitch. This is just saying, oof, chips. If I eat a lot, I'll get fat. Give me money. That's not a campaign pitch. And so this is given a vibe of Vance that's quite weird. And the public doesn't really know how to receive him. And that has led to Democrats just tearing him a new one on the label of just weird. And so while he's calling, oh my gosh, the Democrats are weird. They're creepy. As he's trying to make those attacks, this has just been turned on him 180 degrees. And I wanted to show you a moment from the Governor Walz going after JD Vance, specifically over the idea that he's just, weird.
We do not like what has happened where we can't even go to Thanksgiving dinner with our uncle because you end up in some weird fight that is unnecessary. and I think bringing back people together, it's true. These guys are just weird. And it's, they're running for He-Man Women Haters Club or something. That's what they go at. That's not what people are interested in.
And I mean, he's a popular governor. He's a popular governor from a swing state. I mean, it's a good point, man. It is weird. It is weird for you to say that people without children should have less voting influence than people with children. It is weird to have a Fugitive Women's Act. It is weird. His charisma is very weird. It's very slimy. The weird internet philosophers that he likes that I don't even want to get into, that talks about turning unproductive people into biofuel, is weird. Him talking about stepmothers as childless cat ladies with no investment in the country's future is not only weird, it's kind of offensive. And that's not even talking about JD Vance's just repulsion to our democratic system, saying that he would overturn the democratic vote of the people on January 6th to send it back to the states to let the Republican state houses make Donald Trump president again, even though he had lost the election. And this has all come together to produce a result that JD Vance is just I can't believe I almost forgot one of the best parts. JD Vance also, on top of all of this, used to be a really big Donald Trump hater. And I mean, when I say a really big Donald Trump hater, I mean, he hated Donald Trump in 2016. He thought he was the worst of the worst that the Republican Party had to offer. And as somebody from the Midwest, somebody from Ohio, somebody from the Rust Belt with the opioid crisis hit them the hardest, he compared him to heroin. He compared him to opiates. Well, there's no worse comparison you can make than that, except the other one he reportedly made, which is calling him Hitler behind closed doors. And there's a million different clips available publicly online that are going to get dug out in this campaign and shot out and attack ad after attack ad after attack ad after attack ad of him talking about how Donald Trump tried to sexually assault women, or his horrible conduct, or how Christians shouldn't have to apologize for his behavior, calling Donald Trump unchristian. I don't even think Republicans are going to like the guy if they keep seeing those ads over and over and over again, even if his justification is, that was me before. That was you 5 years ago. That wasn't that long ago. And when he jumped on the Trump train, it was only like a 2-year difference. How did he reverse from he's Hitler to he's the best president of our lifetime in 2 years? I mean, those things aren't necessarily contradictory, but I sure hope they are, at least from his perspective. But let me show you just some of these clips of the stuff that's going to be fired out constantly on the campaign trail.
Tonight, Trump telling reporters he doesn't regret choosing JD Vance as his running mate now that Harris is now at the top of the Democratic ticket.
I do the same pick. I think he's doing really well. He's really caught on.
Comes as our K-File uncovers Vance's own words supporting a woman who accused Trump of sexual misconduct.
At a fundamental level, this is sort of a he said, she said, right? And at the end of the day, do you believe Donald Trump, who always tells the truth? Just kidding. Or do you believe that woman on that tape?
No. K-File's Andrew Kaczynski is out front now. I mean, Andrew, this is a front and center topic.
Look, this is just one example. You can find like 100 other versions of him saying Donald Trump is not fit to serve. That's something that's going to hurt them. Kamala Harris, like a few times on the campaign trail, like made some critiques of Joe Biden. It was never Joe Biden's Hitler. It was never Joe Biden in and of itself is comparable to the worst drugs decimating America today. All of this is combined to make JD one of the least liked VP nominees in American history, with him right out of the gate having a net negative favorability rating, when usually when VP picks are made, the point is to cover up for a candidate's weaknesses. Pick somebody popular who's going to help you win states that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to. Like, for example, if they were to invest in a VP pick that could win the Republicans' Wisconsin, which is a state that they're not looking very good in right now. But instead, we get JD Vance, the least popular VP nominee in American history for at least the last 50 years. Check this out.
It's a negative net territory. Look at that, -6 points. I will tell you, Aaron, I have gone all the way back since 1980. He is the first guy after immediately following a convention, a VP pick, who actually had a net negative favorable rating. That is underwater. The average since 2000 is plus 19 points. JD Vance making history in the completely wrong way.
I mean, it's amazing. Plus 19. And I know people talk VPs don't usually matter, but they're usually
they're
not
pretty
a negative.
popular. Usually they're popular. In this case, he's dragging Trump down.
All right. And then there's also Ohio, which I, have been around long enough to have been there on an election night. And the reason I was there, because the person who wins Ohio wins the White House.
Right.
Ohio's a red state now.
It's a red state now.
So what does the JD Vance pick do for Trump? Obviously, he is senator from Ohio.
There's this whole idea, JD Vance is, going to help out in Ohio, perhaps help out in those Rust Belt, those Great Lake battleground states. But if you look at Ohio, JD Vance won in 2022, but he only won by 6 points. That's worse than Donald Trump did in 2020. It's far worse than Mike DeWine did in 2022. He was the worst performing Republican candidate in 2022 up and down the ballot in the state of Ohio. He had nothing there.
All right, so Trump.
Worst performing candidate up and down the ballot in the state of Ohio, a state that Trump's already certainly going to win already. And so all of this has led to some Republicans. Oh, by the way, here's like another poll out there, which the VP's main job is to replace the president of the United States. So this poll does matter. Do you think JD Vance is ready to serve as president if necessary? This is from YouGov. No, getting the plurality of the votes at 38%. Yes, at 29%, and unsure at 33%, probably making up a decent percentage of Americans who just doesn't know who JD Vance is yet. These numbers aren't good. They're not only are they not good, they are historically bad. And it's leading to a lot of Republicans having big second guesses over JD Vance's pick. And there is even some reports that Trump is having second guesses, even though he's publicly distancing himself from that. Let's read from a few of these Republican insiders. The road got a lot harder. He was the only pick that wasn't safe. And I think everyone has now realized that. One House Republican told Axios, speaking on the condition of anonymity. On the whole, the feeling is doesn't add much, another House Republican said of Trump picking Vance. And now with Kamala at the top, the capacity to have expanded the map a little bit would have been much more beneficial. Let's see if there's any more in here, any more quotes. I've always said that President Trump has the best political instincts of everyone I've ever met. His instincts were right in picking JD Vance, said John Barrassimo. So it's not everybody who thinks this way. Obviously, there are some who think he was the right pick, but he doesn't add anything to the campaign. The one big thing that I keep hearing is, as somebody who comes from a family who dealt with addiction and he's from a Rust Belt state, maybe he can appeal to states like Michigan who have dealt with Rust Belt decay and appeal to them on that personal level. But so far, he has not displayed that, because the one state that he's actually from, Ohio, again, he was the worst performing candidate up and down the ballot on the Republican side. He won by 6 points against Tim Ryan, barely beating Tim Ryan. I mean, 6 points is still beating, and it's hard to call it barely beating. But when you talk about that district, it is actually quite close. It is quite close in a district that is usually red. Point is, though, JD Vance is weird. He's not charismatic. He has said some extreme things on the issue of abortion, on the issue of voting, on the issue of women and their rights. He is a guy who doesn't give Trump anything when flipping states that he needs to flip, like Pennsylvania. The only possible impact he could have is connecting with people when it comes to opioids, but he doesn't have the charisma to connect to people on a basic level, leading to him being historically unpopular. So why was JD Vance picked? Well, there's a few reasons. Like, number one, he's young, and having a young VP pick was probably an idea of counterbalancing Donald Trump's age. And if they're running against a very old Joe Biden and they've got a young VP pick, then they can make his card look younger. Now that Kamala Harris is running against them, and Kamala Harris might pick somebody like, I don't know, Andy Beshear or Josh Shapiro, somebody in their 40s, maybe that becomes less effective, especially if Donald Trump is now, this is just fact, the oldest presidential nominee in American history. There's also, of course, again, the Rust Belt factor. We already talked about that, but there's also, and this is a big one that actually helped him get the nomination, is that Eric and Don Jr. got in his corner and fought for him. A big reason why JD Vance got picked, when reportedly Donald Trump was actually going to go with a much more moderate, reeling in option of Doug Burgum, is because once they found out it was going to be Doug, Don Jr. and Eric Trump said, no, what are you doing? You're going to give it all up. Go with JD. And they convinced their father, or at least pushed their father, to go with JD Vance instead of the much more moderate, much more, to be frank, electable, if that term has any meaning, Doug Burgum. So I think a lot of it has to do with Donald Trump's kids, which again shows that Donald Trump's children has much more political influence right now than I think even Hunter Biden does, with how much attention that they get. And Donald Trump did want to appoint Ivanka Trump to be UN ambassador. So remember, you don't just elect a president, you elect an administration, and the Trump family comes with the whole package. But lastly, and I think this is the most important thing for Trump, is loyalty. And not only is JD Vance like matching and copying Trump's mannerisms with how he's moving his hands and their big red tie, and not only is he copying his mannerisms, he is serving Donald Trump in anything he wants. He said he would overturn the Democratic election results for Donald Trump and give him the victory if he was in the position of Mike Pence, that he would take unconstitutional authority to overturn the election results, send it back to the states by trusting in the fake electors, or at least saying that the fake electors make it confusing enough that we don't know who the real electors are, so we have to send it back to the state houses, even though we all clearly knew who the real electors were, and Donald Trump was just trying to use the chaos of the moment to delay the certification and keep himself in power. And that is concerning. But that type of loyalty can be gotten from JD because his whole political career is based on the MAGA movement. And without Trump, he is not the senator from Ohio. Without Trump, he has no political career. Without Trump, he is no VP. Without Trump, he would just be a senator who underperformed, if he could have even gotten the seat without Trump, period. And so I think that loyalty, in comparison to Mike Pence, who would not overturn the election results, Donald Trump chose JD because he was overconfident. He was like, look, this is a guy that will be loyal to me, Doug Burgum, who knows how loyal he will be. And so if I think I'm going to win this, I need to think about how to solidify my control once I'm in office. less than just somebody who's more electable. So he was the riskiest pick. And now with the shakeup and Kamala back at the top of the ticket, I think if it was 3 weeks ago that he knew this was going to happen, I don't think he would have gone with JD Vance. I think he would have gone for somebody from maybe Pennsylvania or otherwise that could have helped him in one of these swing states, or somebody that could have moderated his image. But that's then. This is now. Trump might be stuck with JD Vance despite his unelectability and unfavorability being worse than even Trump's. 100% about loyalty? Of course it's about loyalty. It's from top to bottom about loyalty.